Do you remember the dishes you grew up eating? Over the years, we've watched these meals quietly fade away, replaced by new trends and modern tastes. But one can't help but wonder, do these forgotten foods deserve another chance, or are they better left in the past? Stick around as we explore 20 middle-class favorites that have vanished from our plates and decide which ones just might deserve a comeback. 20. Steak Diane. Let's start with a dish that once brought flair to the dinner table. Steak Diane. Remember the way your grandma would sear that tender steak in sizzling butter? It seemed so simple, yet it was pure magic. But the real star was the sauce. A rich blend of finely chopped shallots, a dash of Worcestershire sauce, a hint of Dijon mustard, a splash of hearty beef stock, and a generous pour of cognac. A final grind of black pepper sealed the deal, making each bite unforgettable. Steak Diane might not have been the prettiest dish, just a humble steak in a brown sauce, with a sprinkle of chives, if you were lucky. But that aroma, a heady mix of beef and brandy, could fill a room and draw everyone to the table. Back in the post-World War II era, this dish symbolized newfound abundance and a taste of continental luxury that had been out of reach for years. During the war, strict rationing made meat and dairy scarce, and New York restaurants even had meatless days. But once the war ended, meat and butter were back, and Steak Diane became a celebration of indulgence. How much did you enjoy this classic steak? If you thought Steak Diane was a treat, just wait until you hear about a dish that was once as common as chicken, yet just as delicious. 19th, rabbit stew. Who else misses rabbit stew? Surely I'm not the only one. Once upon a time, rabbits were as common as chickens. But today, they're often thought of as a dish for rugged outdoorsmen, or something straight out of an old pioneer tale. But back then, rabbit was for everyone. It appeared in stews, fried, roasted, or even in elegant French-inspired dishes like fricassee. What made rabbit stew so special? Simple yet flavorful ingredients. Tender rabbit meat combined with carrots, onions, celery, garlic, and whatever else you had on hand. Sometimes potatoes or mushrooms were added for an extra earthy taste. Everything was slow cooked to perfection, resulting in a meal that was all about comfort and family. In the 1970s, rabbit fricassee was widely appreciated for its tenderness and savory flavor. And here's a fun tidbit. Monks would eat rabbit during Lent because for some reason it was considered a type of fish. No kidding. While its origins lie in French cuisine, the dish was also beloved by the Algonquin people. If you've never tasted rabbit before, you'd be surprised. Its flavor is similar to chicken, but with a texture closer to pork. Maybe it's time to bring rabbit back to the dinner table. What do you think? Speaking of forgotten comfort foods, the next dish is a crispy delight that once stole the show at backyard picnics and summer gatherings. 18. Corn fritters. Now here's a treat that takes you way back. Did you know that National Corn Fritters Day is celebrated on July 16th? It's true. For years, these golden, crispy delights were a staple at backyard barbecues and family feasts. Originating in the southern United States, corn fritters can be traced as far back as the 1600s. In fact, they were even mentioned in a diary entry by Samuel Pepys in 1665. So, what makes corn fritters so irresistible? Simple ingredients: flour, baking powder, a bit of sugar, a pinch of salt, eggs, milk, and of course, sweet corn kernels. Mix them all together. Drop spoonfuls into hot oil and fry until golden brown. It doesn't get much easier than that. You can enjoy them plain, but if you're feeling fancy, drizzle them with honey or syrup for a touch of sweetness. And don't think of corn fritters as just a side dish. Pair them with pan-fried fish, and veggies on a toasted bun, and you've got yourself an unforgettable fish sandwich. If crispy corn fritters make you nostalgic, just wait until you rediscover this next dish. One that adds a bit of indulgence and elegance to the table. 17. Chicken tetrazzini. Chicken tetrazzini, just saying the name, brings back memories of potlucks and family dinners. This dish features tender chicken or turkey in a rich, creamy sauce mixed with spaghetti, all baked to perfection with a golden breadcrumb crust. And that sauce? It's a little bit of everything wonderful: sherry or white wine, Parmesan cheese, mushrooms, garlic, onions. You name it, it's in there. While its exact origin is debated, it's believed to have been invented in honor of Italian opera singer Luisa Tetrazzini after a performance in San Francisco in 1905. Chicken or turkey? Honestly, it doesn't matter. Both work beautifully in this dish. Between the early 1900s and 1950s, chicken tetrazzini became the go-to meal for using up leftovers. In fact, a 1948 magazine asked, "Do you have turkey leftover problems?" The answer? Turkey tetrazzini. It was easy to make, fancy enough to impress guests, and as one 1938 article put it, a deluxe dish. The real heyday of chicken tetrazzini came in the 1960s and 70s, when canned soups made it even more convenient. It was budget-friendly, simple, and still felt special. Maybe it's time to bring this one back. It might just wow everyone all over again. But if you're craving something with vibrant colors and bold flavors, our next dish transforms a humble root vegetable into a feast for the senses. 16. Borscht. If you're a fan of hearty soups, then you've probably heard of borscht, a vibrant ruby red bowl of warmth packed with deep earthy flavors. This classic dish starts with sautéing onions, garlic, and carrots until they turn soft and aromatic. Then come the chopped beets, cabbage, and potatoes, all tossed in and allowed to simmer before being drenched in a rich broth and brought to a gentle boil. As everything softens, a splash of vinegar or lemon juice adds just the right amount of tang. Some prefer to take it up a notch by adding beef or pork, transforming it into a heartier, protein-packed meal. And of course, no bowl of borscht is complete without a generous dollop of sour cream and a sprinkling of fresh dill on top. Originally considered a humble peasant dish, borscht gradually found its way onto tables across different cultures, becoming a beloved staple for both everyday meals and special occasions. It's a dish that has truly stood the test of time. But the real question is, would people today be open to reviving this timeless comfort food? Speaking of unexpected flavors, our next dish transformed an ordinary vegetable into an elegant, restaurant-worthy creation. And it all began in San Francisco. 15. Celery Victor. Think celery is just a boring, flavorless vegetable? Think again. Celery Victor may sound like a forgotten relic, but back in 1910, it was a culinary sensation, thanks to Victor Herzler, the renowned head chef at San Francisco's prestigious St. Francis Hotel. The dish gained even more fame after being featured in Clarence E. Edwards' 1914 book, A Bohemian Guide to San Francisco Restaurants. So, what made Celery Victor stand out? It took simple celery and transformed it into a luxurious, marinated delicacy. The process started by simmering celery in a flavorful broth, either chicken or beef, depending on personal taste. Once tender, it was chilled in a zesty marinade, infused with vinegar or citrus, and mixed with mild peppers for a subtle kick. For an extra touch of crunch, it was often served over a crisp bed of lettuce. Simple, yet unexpectedly refined, Celery Victor was a dish that could impress even the most skeptical eaters. So why not revive this forgotten gem for your next weekend dinner? Who knows, it might just become a new favorite. But if you thought that was unique, wait until you hear how a famous battlefield victory led to the creation of a dish that became an instant classic. 14. Chicken marengo. There's just something about chicken dishes that always brings a sense of comfort. But have you ever heard of chicken marengo? If not, let me share the fascinating story behind it. Legend has it that after Napoleon's victory over the Austrians near the village of Marengo, Italy, on June 14, 1800, he was absolutely famished. His chef, unprepared for the moment, had to whip up a meal with whatever ingredients were available. The result? A dish made from chicken, tomatoes, mushrooms, garlic, white wine, eggs, truffles, and even river crayfish, turning simple battlefield rations into a meal fit for an emperor. This impromptu creation became known as chicken marengo, a rustic yet flavorful dish featuring pan-fried chicken topped with a rich tomato-based sauce. The addition of crayfish and a fried egg gave it a unique twist, setting it apart from traditional chicken recipes. Though it was once a popular staple, chicken marengo has slowly faded from home kitchens. But imagine bringing it back, serving up a dish with such rich history and bold flavors at your next family dinner. Maybe it's time to rediscover this forgotten classic. Speaking of dishes with misleading names, our next one might have you expecting rabbit. But don't be fooled. 13. Welsh rarebit. Some call it Welsh rarebit, while others stick to the old name, Welsh rabbit. But despite what it sounds like, there's no rabbit involved in this dish. Instead, it's a deliciously savory cheese sauce made by blending melted cheddar with mustard, ale, Worcestershire sauce, and a dash of cayenne pepper. Once heated to perfection, this rich, velvety mixture is poured generously over toasted bread, creating a dish that's both simple and deeply satisfying. The first recorded mention of Welsh rarebit dates back to 1725, when it was humorously named Welsh rabbit, possibly as a playful jab at the Welsh working class, implying that cheese was their alternative to meat. Over time, the name evolved, but the dish itself remained a comforting classic. Served as a light but hearty meal, it pairs wonderfully with a crisp green salad. And for an extra indulgence, top it with a poached egg, transforming it into a golden bug, a variation that elevates it even further. While Welsh rarebit thrives on simplicity, our next dish takes us on a trip down memory lane with a sweet, nostalgic treat that's as quirky as it is unforgettable. Ambrosia salad. Ambrosia salad was the crown jewel of mid-century gatherings. A whimsical mix of canned mandarin oranges, juicy pineapple chunks, soft mini marshmallows, shredded coconut, and a dreamy swirl of whipped cream or tangy sour cream. It might have sounded like an odd combination, but on holiday tables and summer picnics, it felt just right, almost heavenly. Every family seemed to have their own spin on this nostalgic treat. Some versions included cottage cheese for extra creaminess. Others leaned on vanilla pudding for a touch of sweetness, and a few skipped the nuts entirely. But no matter the variation, the essentials remained the same: citrus, coconut, and that signature creamy texture. There's something so comforting about ambrosia salad, a dish that carried the warmth of family traditions. Maybe it's time for this classic to make a comeback. Who wouldn't want a little taste of that magic again? But if you thought ambrosia was the highlight of retro dining, just wait until you remember the wiggly giggly creations that defined the 1950s and beyond. Jello molds. There was a time when American dining tables were ruled by Jello molds, bright, wobbly masterpieces packed with sweet fruits, shredded carrots, cottage cheese, marshmallows, crunchy pretzels, or nuts. These quirky salads turned ordinary meals into something exciting and unexpected. Jell-O itself was invented in the late 1890s, but it wasn't until 1904 that the first Jell-O mold was recorded in Pennsylvania, courtesy of Mrs. Johnny Cook. By the 1950s, Jell-O molds had taken over family meals, parties, and holiday feasts, becoming a staple at every social gathering. Do you remember those days? Maybe it's time for a Jell-O mold revival. While Jell-O added a splash of color to the table, our next dish was all about warm, creamy comfort, the kind of breakfast that fueled generations. Creamed chipped beef on toast, SOS. Creamed chipped beef on toast, affectionately known as SOS, was once a morning staple in homes across America. Some remember it as a cozy childhood breakfast, while others first encountered it in the army, where it became a mess hall classic. The recipe was simple yet deeply satisfying. Thinly sliced dried beef simmered in a velvety white sauce made from butter, flour, and milk, then ladled generously over crisp, toasted bread. It was hearty, filling, and, most importantly, budget-friendly, making it a go-to meal for families looking to stretch their grocery dollars. My mother often made her own version, swapping out the pricier dried beef for those little 75-cent packets of pressed beef. Just a few ounces mixed into a basic white sauce, and voila! A comforting meal that was easy on the wallet and big on nostalgia. Did you grow up eating this classic dish? If you loved quick and convenient meals, you might also remember the golden age of TV dinners, when supper was served straight from the freezer, right in front of the tube. TV dinners, Swanson brought something truly special to American households, a delicious new twist on frozen dinners. Picture this: cranberry sauce added to the turkey dinner, cocktail sauce for the fried shrimp meal, and crispy hash brown potatoes in the beef dinner. For many, TV dinners weren't just food. They were a part of family traditions, a comforting staple that now lives on mostly in nostalgic conversations. But did you know that the very first TV dinner came from one of the most creative solutions for Thanksgiving leftovers? In 1952, Swanson found itself with a massive problem: 52,000 pounds of extra turkey. With refrigerated rail cars packed to the brim, they needed a solution. That's when a Swanson employee, Thomas, had a stroke of genius. While on a business trip, he noticed airlines serving warm meals in divided metal trays. That's when it hit him. Why not bring the same idea to American homes? Just 2 years later, Swanson launched its first ever TV dinner, a Thanksgiving feast packed neatly into a segmented heat-proof tray. It included turkey with gravy, buttered peas, sweet potatoes, and cornbread dressing. The packaging even had dials and knobs printed on it, designed to look like a television set, since these meals were meant to be enjoyed in front of the latest household obsession. The TV just popped the tray into the oven, and in under 20 minutes, dinner was ready to be devoured. It was fast, easy, and felt futuristic, perfect for families looking for convenience and excitement. TV dinners became the go-to solution for quick meals. But before that, there was a dish that truly captured the flavors of the harvest. And its history? You won't believe it. Succotash. Who doesn't love corn? If you do, then you'll probably love succotash, a dish that celebrates corn in the most delicious way possible. This old school favorite goes back as far as the 17th century, yet it has nearly disappeared from dinner tables today. The name comes from the Narragansett word msikwatash, meaning boiled corn kernels, which gives us a hint at how the dish first came to be. Sukkotash is a simple yet flavorful combination of sweet corn, tender lima beans, and any other vegetables available, like onions, tomatoes, or bell peppers, Some versions even include diced corned beef or salted pork for a rich, savory touch. For many, succotash is a throwback to their college days, when cooking meant getting creative with whatever ingredients were on hand. Honestly, I'd love to see it make a comeback. Succotash was all about fresh flavors, but the next dish, it takes us straight to the heart of every classic deli counter, a taste that truly stood out from the rest. Olive loaf. Think of it as America's answer to Italian mortadella. Olive loaf was a unique twist on deli meat, made from a mix of pork, chicken, and beef, with whole green olives speckled throughout. Each slice had that briny pop of flavor and a vibrant color that made it stand out in any sandwich. Do you remember family gatherings when someone would pull out a pack of olive loaf from the fridge? It was a staple for quick, impromptu sandwiches. Something about that salty, savory taste made it an instant favorite. It wasn't quite bologna, not quite ham, but something entirely its own. Paired with mustard or mayo, it was simply perfect. Yet over time, olive loaf lost its spot in the deli lineup, fading into obscurity. These days, it's rare to find it in grocery stores, but for those who grew up with it, the taste brings back memories of family lunches, summer picnics, and nostalgic snacks. Would you want to see it make a comeback? Olive loaf may have ruled the deli, but our next dish, it became a wartime staple before finding its place at dinner tables across America. Salisbury steak. Some know it as a TV dinner classic, others as a comforting home-cooked meal. But did you know this dish started not as a culinary invention, but as a medical remedy? During the Civil War, Dr. James Henry Salisbury, a firm believer in germ theory, developed a strict diet of beefsteak and coffee. He argued that beef was easier for soldiers to digest than root vegetables, and from this belief, Salisbury steak was born. The original version was simple: ground beef mixed with breadcrumbs, onions, and eggs, shaped into patties, and pan-fried or grilled. The real magic, though, came in the form of its signature rich brown gravy made from beef broth, Worcestershire sauce, and a thickening of flour for that deep, savory flavor. By World War I, Salisbury steak appeared on military menus, praised for its high calorie count and ease of preparation. Fast forward to the mid-20th century, and it became a staple in frozen TV dinners, an easy, satisfying meal for families on the go. Salisbury steak brought hearty flavors to the dinner table, but our next dish, it took Sunday dinners to the next level with creamy, cheesy goodness. Haddock murray. Remember those Sunday dinners when your mom or grandma would pull a bubbling, cheesy dish straight from the oven? The kitchen would fill with the irresistible aroma of melted cheese and fresh seafood. That was haddock murray, a touch of elegance at the family table, especially in the 1950s and 1960s. So, what made haddock murray so special? It started with tender haddock fillets, gently poached and coated in a rich, creamy bechamel sauce. A luscious blend of butter, flour, milk, and grated cheese. Some recipes added a hint of mustard or a splash of white wine for extra depth and flavor. But the real magic happened in the oven. A golden, crispy topping of breadcrumbs and more cheese formed a delicate crust, adding the perfect crunch to every bite. Paired with fluffy mashed potatoes or steamed vegetables, this dish was both refined and comforting. It made any meal feel special, bringing the whole family together at the table. Maybe it's time to bring haddock murray back. It deserves a revival. Haddock murray brought elegance to dinner, but if you're ready for something a little more adventurous, the next dish is sure to leap onto your plate. Frog legs. I know. Frog legs? Really? But hear me out. While it may seem like a daring choice, The English were actually snacking on these little delicacies 8,000 years before they ever became a French favorite. Crazy, right? If you've never tried them, frog legs are surprisingly familiar. Somewhere between chicken and fish, but lighter and more delicate. And frying them? That's where the magic happens. Imagine tender frog legs, dusted with seasoned flour or cornmeal, sizzling in hot oil until they're perfectly crispy and golden brown. A squeeze of lemon or dollop of tartar sauce. And you've got a dish that's both unexpected and delicious. Sure, it might sound unusual, but frog legs are more edible and enjoyable than you might think. Who knows? They might just become your new favorite. Frog legs may have been an adventurous choice, but the next dish on our list has been a coastal favorite for centuries. Oyster stew oysters are a love it or hate it kind of thing, but their history in America runs deep. Back in the late 1800s and early 1900s, oysters were so abundant they were sold on street corners as a cheap snack. If you're from a coastal area, you know how incredible a properly cooked oyster stew can be. This dish is beautifully simple, just a handful of ingredients. Fresh oysters, milk, butter, salt, pepper, and a sprinkle of green onions. That's all it takes to create a rich, creamy, and slightly briny bowl of comfort. It even became a holiday tradition, especially on Christmas Eve. Today, oysters are more of a delicacy, but for thousands of years, people have been shocking and savoring them. Oyster stew was a warm, nostalgic taste of the sea, but if you're craving something more exotic, the next dish brings a burst of Mediterranean flavors right to your kitchen. Chicken marbella. If you've never tried chicken marbella, let me tell you, you're missing out. This dish is an absolute classic. First introduced in the 1982 Silver Palette Cookbook by Gulli Rosso and Sheila Lukens. Back in the 70s, Lukens was running a catering business in Manhattan when Rosso, a regular customer, teamed up with her to open a gourmet food shop in New York City. Their chicken marbella quickly became a signature dish, especially for Jewish holidays and Shabbat dinners. So, what makes it so irresistible? It all starts with an overnight marinade. Chicken soaked in a mix of prunes, olives, capers, garlic, olive oil, and oregano. The longer it sits, the deeper the flavors become. When it's time to cook, the chicken is arranged in a baking dish, drizzled with the marinade, sprinkled with brown sugar, and surrounded by a splash of white wine. Then it's roasted until golden, juicy, and bubbling with rich, tangy sweet goodness. Served hot and straight from the oven, chicken marbella is always a showstopper. But if you're looking for a real holiday centerpiece, nothing beats the golden, crispy perfection of a classic roast. Roast goose, a holiday classic worth reviving. Who else misses the golden, crispy perfection of a roast goose gracing the holiday table? If you've ever watched an old Christmas movie, you might have noticed that holiday traditions weren't always the same as they are today. Take A Christmas Carol, for example. Before Scrooge surprises the Cratchit family with a massive turkey, they were preparing a classic roast goose for their festive feast. Cooking a roast goose is surprisingly simple. Start with a whole goose and season it generously with salt, pepper, and fresh herbs like thyme and rosemary. Stuff the bird with apples, onions, and garlic to infuse it with rich flavor. To achieve that irresistible crispy skin, rub it down with butter or goose fat before roasting. As it cooks, baste it occasionally with its own juices, adding a splash of white wine or apple cider for extra moisture and depth of flavor. Now, picture this: golden, crackling skin, tender, juicy meat, and a rich, savory gravy made from the pan drippings. Pair it with traditional sides like roasted potatoes, braised red cabbage, or buttery Brussels sprouts, and you've got a holiday meal that's as indulgent as it is nostalgic. Roast goose has deep roots in European cuisine, especially in Germany and Britain, where it was the centerpiece of Christmas dinner long before turkey took over. But who says we can't bring it back? Maybe it's time to revive this forgotten favorite and give it a place at the holiday table once again. So, which of these classic dishes do you think deserves a comeback? Or is there another long-lost favorite we missed? Let us know in the comments, because maybe it's time to bring a little taste of the past back to our plates.